and welcome to the latest instalment of Red Army TV. Yaff is no longer in the gaff. He's still away playing with Mickey Mouse in Disneyland or Disney World or some place in America. It is I, Super Sub off the bench, and an internal production. It's all indoors, fellas. It is the Red Army Rambler, the man who walks around the country wearing a haversack. It's Phil Bullock.
It is. I'm also highly opinionated as well.
Oh, is that why you're a Rambler?
That's what it is.
You just don't put the hobnail boots on and go walking in the countryside?
No,
okay.
absolutely not.
And a man who's doing his best to copy Adama Traore. No, it's not the 100 metres in 9 seconds. It is dislocating a shoulder, mate. It's Paul Burke. How are you, mate?
Hello.
You're in pain?
In pain.
Oh, goodness. What?
And I'm going to put it on as much as I can. So.
Are you really?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, Yaff's away, so the mice will play. We're in the gaff, mate, so if the pain gets too much, we'll sort it out. Don't you worry. And you're on social media too, so give us your comments on Red Army TV. Phil, start with you. 2-2, Forest. Before the game, Forest pushing for promotion, Borough struggling for our lives in the bottom three. Would we have been happy with a gritty performance and a point at the end of it?
Yeah, I think we were desperate for it. I think the fans, after the Leeds performance, it wasn't the worst against Leeds. It certainly wasn't the best. We ended up dropping the 3 points there, and I think having the chairman come out in between this, sort of the Leeds game and the Forest game, and sort of publicly backing Woody, the fans really needed to see a performance, and I think for 90% of the game, I think we did. I think we played well for a team that have taken 25 points this year already. I think it is the informed team in the Championship. It was always going to be hard. I think a lot of their points they've taken on the road, Forest. So I think a lot of people probably wrote us off as soon as Gusted was announced as a starter. I certainly didn't expect that. And many other fans didn't, but we played well in parts. We looked to get the ball forward. I think we had 3 fairly decent breaks, virtually the same sort of style breaks as we did against Leeds, but we just were struggling like hell to put them in, and I think that's the frustrating part, because once we find that we can't put the ball in the back of the net, I think the rest of the team starts to feel that pressure, and that's when defensively we might collapse a little bit, because we're trying so hard to get the ball up there that's when we start sort of going laps. And
well, we'll jump into how we played, formation, all that kind of stuff. But I noticed big nods coming from alongside you from Adama Traore too, sitting there. Yeah, you're no big nods or Adama too, whichever you want, mate. Did you write the Borough off as soon as we saw Gusted in the lineup?
I'm not ashamed to admit, yeah, I did.
Why?
I just saw the lineup. Like I posted on Twitter, it was picked by Guinevere and set of balls number 6.
You reckon that's where we've got to at the moment?
Yeah.
Doesn't know his starting formation.
No,
doesn't know his starting 11.
Doesn't know his starters. 6 weeks ago or 2 months ago, you could have said yeah, because there was that many injuries. He just had the right players to pick, and look at how we were doing.
I think he's sort of been tabooed, hasn't he? At the end of the transfer window, one of the reporters asked him if he's happy, and he said, "Look, I've got a squad of players to pick from now." And since that comment, and other players have started to come back. I mean, you know, I think we've lost Friend again. I think possibly for a couple of weeks, because at the end of the Leeds game, he walked off. He was holding his hamstring. Obviously, we know Fletcher was injured as well. We've got players coming back, but just as quick. We've got players now leaving the pitch through injury anyway. So I think we're in the same boat, really.
The real change to that team was weeks ago when Patrick Roberts got injured.
Yeah, massively missing him.
Really yeah, but was it? I mean, we went on that run of 4 successive victories, including top of the table West Brom at the Hawthorns, Preston, who had the best home record in the division at that point. Was it Roberts getting injured after that, or was it for the fact that players started recovering from injury, so there was more choice and more changes that could have been made? What was the reason why that good run of form just suddenly ended?
I think it's more players started to come back from injury, and he's gone with who he thought was his best 11, and I think that's probably the biggest or the best answer is he's had a squad of players to choose from. He's picked what he thought was his best, and it's not worked, and he's not known how to go back to that 4-game run. And of course, in and around that, you know, you've lost certain players and other players. You know, I've been surprised at how little Britt has been used this season by Jonathan Woodgate.
From Charlton.
Is that a surprise though? Because we heard Steve Gibson come out during the week saying it's not Woody's fault, the position where we find ourselves. It's some big earning, big name players who are not going to be here after the end of the season. It is,
but somebody like Britt, who the fans all seem to back him because of his past goal scoring record at different clubs, the fact that he's cost £15 million, the fact that Tony Pulis stood by him. The fact that that Gary Monk obviously brought him in, and managers in the past up until Jonathan Woodgate have backed him and given him that chance. And now it seems that Woody is massively favouring, quite rightly so, Ashley Fletcher.
Your thoughts on Britt? Fans, you're
Could
a fan.
do better. Could do better.
Are you still backing him, or?
Yeah, but he needs to show more on the pitch. He's not. He comes on, he seems lazy, lethargic, doesn't put any effort in. Where you look at the likes of Fletcher, who does, and is scoring the goals. And he's scored the most goals this season than he's ever done in his career.
Mm.
But wouldn't it have been a good, the old adage, horses for courses, would it not have been a decent game to have thrown Britt in against a former club, to have started against Forest?
Yes, but he wasn't even on the bench. And why, we don't know. He was ill.
Yeah, and look, if you're going to look at the bench, and you're going to look across the game. Yeah, it'd have been great to bring him on. Is he ill? Is he going? Has he fought? Speculation continues on that front. But I think surprising for me, I think Jonathan Woodgate's putting a lot of hope on Tavernier and Wing, and again against it didn't work for them, and it certainly didn't work for Tav, and I feel sorry for Tav because he is a player, and we've seen him as a player who is sort of majestic on the ball and likes to try and run with it and be creative, but it's just, for whatever reason this season, it has not worked. And I was quite surprised that we didn't get to see Morrison again.
The only one who has took the ball by the horns is Coulson.
Yeah, and what performance, what player he's turning out to be. But if he continues these performances, how long can Borough hold on to him? Because at some point, we saw it with Ben Gibson, we've seen the speculation around Dale Fry.
We've not seen it with Ben Gibson
as soon as we get a decent player and we start to bring them on, very quickly other teams are snapping them up.
A couple of comments coming in from you on social media, and keep them coming, please. Gary Burrow, very straight to the point, love the cap. I think he's talking about the red one, not the blue one. Matty Proudman's watching. Hi Matty, good to have you with us. Ibby reckons he's lost sight of what worked. He's talking about obviously Jonathan Woodgate. Like Britt, but it isn't happening for him. Fletcher's the right choice at the moment, although Rudy Gusted comes in, starts, scores. Nick Matthews, the squad is exactly where they should be for me. Pulis overachieved massively. Now it's shown. However, if we play like we did on Monday night, we have nothing to worry about in terms of going down, but must improve the squad if we are wanting to push for promotion next season. Is Woody the man? Not for me. Now that's an interesting one, because I did see in the Forest game us battling, grinding it out, having a go at them, not just sitting back and saying, okay, break us down. It was a little bit of a different Borough performance than we've seen of late. Did you pull any confidence from the fact that we can have a go at teams like Forest?
No, and I sort of disagree with Nick there, saying that if we play like we did on Monday night, we have nothing to worry about in terms of going down. We've played 24, 25 games this season, and this is the first time that somebody's come out and said if we play like this, there's 10 games left. I don't think Jonathan Woodgate's done anything differently. I think the kick up the backside has been the chairman coming out in the press and saying there are a number of high-profile earners at this club that will not be here come the summer. And it's the players now have thought, well, the chairman's come out. Actually,
a bit miffed. Let's actually
start
and do some hard work.
That's what I don't think it's Woodgate at all. I think it's the comments of the chairman has sort of spurred that reaction on. Where
are you? We'll come on to the chairman and what he had to say shortly. But where are you, Paul, in whether it was great to see the Borough in a winning position against a team like Forest, considering where we are at the moment, or we couldn't hang on and it was disappointing and typical Borough because we gave away a goal in the last 10 minutes. It was just
typical Borough. You expect it week in, week out. 2-1 ahead, 5 minutes to go, and we just can't hold on to a lead. And that's been the case. That's been the case for years.
I think out of 15 games that Middlesbrough played this season where they've conceded first, they've only won 1 and lost the other 14. So I thought, when we went 1-0 down, I thought, that's it, we've blown it. We pull it back to 1-0.
Don't believe stats.
We go 2-1 up. But even at 2-1 up, we didn't look comfortable, and we looked like there was a mistake in our game, and unfortunately, I think it was the 8th minute, the mistake came.
When it went 2-2, they still could have won it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I've got to be honest, I was sitting there thinking, even at 2-1, I'm thinking, it's a bit like West Brom. We were at West Brom and 1-0 up, and I'm thinking, they're going to score. They're going to score. This time,
at 2-1, I wasn't comfortable. At 2-1, I was thinking, we desperately need to score another goal. We need to get that 2-goal cushion again. And it never after sort of the 60th, 65th minute, it didn't look like it was going to happen because we went quite defensive in how we were playing.
Sitting far too deep, weren't we?
Far too deep, and Clayton to point somebody out. We know we've talked about Clayton before with this Karanka style football when he's passing it back. But again, on Monday night, we saw the elements of the Karanka regime.
Yeah.
Passing it back and
I
passing
think
it across.
that's what tends to happen when there's a bit of fear in there, when there's a bit of lacking in self-belief and doubt comes in. More on that very shortly, but it's time to take a break on Red Army. Yeah, welcome back to the Gaff without Yaff, but he is watching over in Florida. Yaff, we're keeping it warm for you, mate. As you can see, it's pretty cold over here. We've got Phil and Paul in the studio. Fellas, we're talking Forest. A couple of comments that are just coming in. Chris McDermott, good to have you with us, Chris. Hello, mate. Gary and Borough, Brits going back to Forest. Interesting one. Michael Byrne, Borough in too big to go down. Just have a look at Sunderland and Ipswich as examples.
Yep, spot on.
Peter Grasham, gone back to a selling club, which God Gibson has been on the record to say we will not be selling our best young players. But he reckons we've gone back to being a selling club. We are a different club, aren't we?
Yeah.
We're not the same club as we remember. I mean, I'm old. I'm grey and wrinkly. You know, I remember Big Jack, but I remember the Giannino era, the Ravanelli era, the Boxic. You know what? Mega times then. We're not there, and not even close to being there.
But I think it's a positive thing that we've identified that we're not the same club, because I don't think you can run a club this day and age on the way we ran the club even 5 years ago, 10 years ago. So, you know, the change in how we are as a club and how we operate as a club is positive.
Yeah.
I just think that we're not quite getting it right yet, and it seems that getting it right is much further away than what we as fans would have expected.
Those days, though, Paul, Gibbo was basically putting his hand into the coffers and shelling out silly cash. Boxic, 60 grand a week back then, all that kind of stuff. Ravanelli on an absolute fortune, keeping him on Teesside. Yeah. You couldn't operate Middlesbrough like that now, could you?
No, we've got
different worlds, different game.
We've got bankrupt in an instant, won't we?
Yeah. So would you rather? So you're happier with the club coming out, the chairman coming out and saying, "Look, this is how we are. We've got to cut our cloth accordingly. This is the way we're going to go forward. We're going to rely on young talent, finding it, developing it." Happy with that?
You have to be, don't you? It's going to be painful, but it's going to take at least 3 years to get it right on the pitch.
Yeah, I just think hearing the chairman come out and say that, and he always stands behind this financial fair play, and I see that more now as just an excuse, because when in the last sort of 2 or 3 years, we've had to abide by this financial fair play and the money that was spent versus the money that's come in, and I understand that, but why are we talking financial fair play when we've only just now started to bring through players that perhaps could have come through a bit more last season? You know, we had Coulson on the bench last season, we had Spence on the bench last season. I think it's alright to hide behind the financial fair play, but actually I think it's clear now that we've not had to, because we've got very good academy players chomping at the bit. I mean, Walker, so Little, for example.
10 years time, we're still going to be saying our financial fair play.
Yeah, and stop talking and start showing us.
I suppose the only thing we can do is we cut our cloth accordingly. We restructure the club, or structure the club as we see best fits the current financial situation. And then in a couple of years' time, if we can get to the Premier League and the land of milk and honey comes along, then is that then the time to start splashing the cash?
I have no doubts that that's what we've been doing. You know, we have cut the cloth. We're relying more now on the academy players. And as much as you don't want to bring politics into football, I bet this whole ordeal with Brexit has had a massive impact and way of thinking of Steve Gibson, obviously with his own company as well as Middlesbrough. the way that he likes to run them. It would have been a massive sort of.
Yeah, but
do we do
the
this
two
or do we
separate
do
businesses,
that?
aren't they? Surely he's not going to run one depending on what happens with the other, is he?
No, but in the past we know it's common, but the money that he's put in has come direct from his other investments. Or
Right.
Depending on what happened with Brexit, would have depended if that was viable, if it was still
Where
likely
they
to
can
happen.
move and sell things
Yeah,
and how much money
so-
the club gets.
And of course, Rockcliffe, he's trying to build that up as best he can as well. So that's obviously taking some of the funds away, but he's doing that again in the interest of the club.
Ibby's been back on. Pairs Costa's gutted. If we lose to Charlton, do you reckon Steve will reconsider his decision? Obviously, he's talking about the goal. Grabham's goal. And by the way, Neil Cox, good to have you with us, Coxie. Good to see you again, mate. Well, you can see us, and we know you're there, mate. Another comment from the game, we'll just put it to bed. It's Nigel Maltby bringing Savillon cost us 10 yards when Morrison would have been a better sub for me. Let's just wrap up Forest. Pearsy. Few people have said it's time to drop him. Are they being serious? I mean, he was man of the match performance against Leeds.
I don't know. I just in the past we've seen players come through, and we've seen Brad Jones. We've seen him who came through fairly quickly after Schwarzer left, and people sort of felt highly about him, and he was rated quite highly, but he'd been left in goal and there was a few mistakes, but because we had nobody else, we had to leave him in goal, same as Ross Turnbull. And I think as a young player, yes, you won as many games under your belt as you possibly can, but we've seen Wing get dropped, we've seen Tav be dropped, we've seen Coulson be dropped, because they're doing as much as they possibly can, but yes, he's only stood between the sticks, but that's his game, and I think at some point he's going to feel a little bit burnt out, and there's a lot of pressure on him, because he'll look at the goal he conceded and think, I should have been stronger.
Was it a foul?
Both of them.
Was it a foul?
No.
Second goal?
No.
Absolutely not.
Three of us shaking our heads here.
No, Grabban was well. He'd been left. He was well onside. He's seen the ball come in, and he's thought, it's 50-50. I'm entitled to go for that ball. I'm going to go for that ball. The size of me compared to the size of the goalkeeper, I should have this, and he did. And you can say he was sort of leaning back, but he's leant back to control the ball. He's not leant back to try and impede Pearsy's run or anything like that, or his catching of the ball. He's got the touch he needed, and it's bundled across the line.
Just not strong enough.
Not strong enough.
Needs more power, doesn't it? Or take a step back from the player.
Yeah.
Give the player a decision to make.
Yeah.
I'd love it if you'd taken it, just as he was leaning, if you'd just taken a step back and he'd have fallen flat on his backside. That would have been humorous. It would have been a gamble, though. But what really grips is, I'm a fully subscribed member, signed up member of the goalkeeping fraternity. 5'9 3/4 was never lobbed. Yet you don't have anybody to protect you. You make a mistake, it's a goal. Your defence has your keeper behind you, midfield has the defender behind you, strikers can make mistakes, your midfielders are there. There's nobody for a keeper. So Pearsy's made a mistake, it's cost us a goal, it's cost us a couple of points against Forest. Yet people are saying he's burned out, he should be dropped.
I have to admit,
it was only a game before he was magnificent against Leeds.
I have to admit, I thought the first goal we conceded was quite weak. There's no way you could say his view was blocked. The player had yards of space. It was a weak shot, just out of reach at a pair. And I think when you can see what's going on and you can read the game, I thought that Pears probably should have done better with the first
Again,
goal.
though, McCoody's let that through his legs.
Yeah.
How many times the last few weeks have we been saying McCoody's let balls go through his legs?
Yeah.
And the first goal, Paddy was sat on his backside whinging for a free kick. Get yourself up.
Paul Nicholas has a good point. He says he's played better in the last two games, but the sad reality is we've now gone 10 without a win, and out of them 10 games, we have conceded some fairly poor goals. And I know it's not just down to the goalkeeper, but ultimately,
any other team would look to change their goalkeeper.
Yeah.
But would you put the new guy in, or would you put Mahirs in? It's got to be.
I wouldn't put Mahirs in, not after the cup exploits.
Leave that up to Mr. Woodgate.
Well, that's what he gets paid for. Stu Gawley, rebuild from League One next season. Peter Grasson, we've been going downhill since the Euro final when we were in front. When in front, not meaning as in the lead, but ahead of the likes of Burnley, Watford, and Bournemouth, who are now Premier League teams, of course. Decent point, but I'd still like to have another European Cup final. Thank you very much.
Sheffield United, we destroyed at the Riverside last season, 3-0.
Doing really well. Looking at European place now. Let's focus on the task ahead. Charlton. It's that dreaded. It always used to be, didn't it? The dreaded trip down to London where we'd get very little return until Karanka's era, and then he obviously destroyed that one. But what are you expecting?
You have to say a win, don't you? You have to be positive and say a win. Although I can't see it coming.
But we were expecting that against Wigan, expecting that against Luton, expecting that against who else was down there? Barnsley. Didn't come.
So I'm going to be positive and say a win. To finally do the double over a team this season.
Phil?
Do you know what? I'm sort of, you know, Mark Fano earlier on said that out the, I think the 10 remaining games he expects at least 8 points, and I struggle to see where we're going to pick up these points, because I think we have been overall, I think, been dreadful this season.
And I've got to agree with you, because I did that exercise. Who have we got? How many points?
Yeah,
We've got very little return.
I think 8 points is coming from 8 out of 10 draws, because I honestly cannot see us winning a game, and if we do win a game, it's going to be scrappy, it's going to be forced from a mistake or something. We have to beat Charlton simply so that the fans keep the faith, and Woody still keeps this, because what we don't want to do is lose the games up to the end of the season, goes, you know what, it's not worth it, I'm going now, because it puts us in a worse position. So for the sake of Woody's career, as a coach, as a manager, I hope to God we win.
You don't want to come down
I just
to the
can't
last
see
day,
where it's
do
coming
you?
from. No,
You want it to be
no, absolutely not.
not clear, but safe.
Yeah.
Gary Walton's watching. Good to have you with us, Gary. Peter Gresham, he started, he said 2-1 Borough. What are you expecting, Paul?
3-0 Borough.
Oh, come on. Talk a bit of sense. 3-0 Borough? Really?
Yeah.
Or are you just doing a Mark Yafano?
No, 3-0.
3-0 Borough.
I'm going to go 1-0 defeat.
Oh,
sorry. Come on.
So I can't see it.
Should we scrub that chair clean then once he's left?
You're going to have to.
Wonder why can't you see
I just, if we've got Rudy up front, yes, I know he scored, but he's been out for a long time, so his match fitness not going to be there. Defensively, we're all over the place at the minute.
We need Ayala back, yeah.
I can't see where it's coming from.
Well, sadly, on that note, I've got to agree with you, and I think the Borough's going to go down probably to a 1-0 defeat as well. Fellas, thank you for that chat. Sorry to end it on such a dour note, but we'll catch you next week on Red Army.